Okay, first up is Samantha. Alright, so yeah, looks like you've got all the basic movement going. I think if you wanted to improve this and take it further, a few things you could do is, one is you could have the feet kind of swing out and back in towards the center line with each step. Another thing is to put some wrist animation on there. You could also have the root move a little bit side to side. So generally the root is over the foot carrying the weight. So, while this foot's carrying the weight, you shift it a little bit to this side. You can see that if he was standing still, he would fall over and lose his balance. And generally, the character should look balanced, which means moving the root over the foot carrying the weight. Leaning forward's okay, is it's a little different because of the forward movement. He's sort of, it's almost like walking is like falling forward and catching yourself each time. So it's fine to lean forward, but side to side you usually be balanced. But apart from that, it's looking good. Next up is Tara. And yeah, once again, looks like you've got all the basic motions looking good. I think some things you can improve if you wanted to take it to the next level is you could have the feet, rather than the legs staying parallel to each other, you could have the feet like swing out and then in towards the center line with each step. Another thing is to maybe let the arms get a little straighter and get a little more swing to them. And you can do a little wrist animation to kind of loosen that up. Also, maybe a little bit of finger motion so the fingers don't look so frozen. You could also animate the head to sort of correct for the other body movement. So, as the shoulders and hips rotate, you can have the head rotate the opposite and stay kind of straight. Also, you can rotate the shoulders opposite the hips. Finally, you can have the root stay centered over the foot carrying the weight. So like when this foot's off the ground, the root can kind of move over to this side a little bit, and then vice versa. When this foot's off the ground, the root can kind of shift over this leg that's carrying the weight. And so those are a few areas for improvement, but overall it looks good. Next up is Herminia, and I don't know what's going on. It looks sort of like slow motion. Maybe it's something with the playback, I don't know, but when you're animating, make sure your playback speed is set to real time so you're seeing the actual speed of the motion. But regardless of that, in fact, maybe we can play back faster. I think in VLC I can play it faster, playback speed faster. It's looking a little bit better. So he's picking up his legs kind of high, almost like he's stepping over something. So I might not lift it up quite that high. That's sort of an unnatural height for a typical walk, Not to say that it's, there's never a case to walk like that, but it's not sort of a normal looking walk. This arm's kind of sweeping in a lot, which looks a little unusual too, and I might, kind of let these straighten out a little bit when you're swinging them. Another thing, if you want to improve it, is you can kind of have the legs kind of be more centered and swing out as they step, from side to side, and also have the root centered over the foot that's carrying the weight, so kind of move the root left and right depending on which foot's carrying the weight. Yeah, so yeah, maybe a little wrist movement. I like that you have a blink on there. That's good. So yeah, good work. Next up is Jared. So yeah, this is it's a good start, but you've got a ways to go. And I'm wondering, you said something about your character. Is the arms broken or something? If so, send me the scene file. I can see if I can fix it. But if it's really stopping you from getting your work done, I would just use one of the stock characters that comes with the Silver City file to move forward. So yeah, either send me the scene file. I'll see if I can fix it. Otherwise, use a stock character if this rig is broken and you can't move the arms. Because I'm guessing that's what's happened here, is you can't move the arms. Okay. Next up is Shaka. Um, so this kind of has a maybe a little bit too quick of a pace. Um, you've got all the basic movements on there, which is good. I think if you wanted to improve it, you could add a little bit of wrist movement. You could also have the legs sort of swing out and back in a little bit as they take each step. You know, not too much, but enough so that they're not just perfectly parallel. You could also add a little bit of wrist animation so the hands kind of don't sort of stick out so much, that there's a little more natural. And maybe, you know, when you do this swing, let the arms get a little straighter. There's tend to stay very bent here. So there's a few things you could do to improve it. And I might reduce the up and down movement a little bit on this too, but something you can play with. Next up is Anthony. And yeah, this is really low resolution, so it's very hard to see. And also that black at the end doesn't help. So it looks like you got most of the basic movement on there, although from what I can tell, the rotation looks a bit exaggerated. Just want to see if I can see what. So I mean, this should fill up the whole frame. I don't know quite what you've done here to make it so small. Um, if I do this, it shows me that so this is 853 by 480, which isn't that big, but it's not that small either. I think it's the fact that this is so small within the larger screen. Like if it filled up this, I don't think it'd be as big of a problem. So I'm not sure exactly where things went wrong with that. Maybe it was when you assembled the different views, or maybe it was when you play blasted them in the first place. But either way, that's much too low resolution to really get a good look at the animation. So I'd work on that. Next up is Justin. So yeah, it's looking alright. One thing to notice is if you look at his left foot here, when it lands, you know, it gets nice and flat on the ground. It slides back. But look at when the right foot, there's kind of a pop here, see that? And then when it lands, it doesn't quite, doesn't quite flatten on the ground, and then it suddenly jumps back, and it's floating above the ground there. So I think you need to adjust that a little bit. But it's got some style and character to it, which is nice. So I think that works pretty well. You might add a little bit of side to side movement for the root so that the root is more centered over the foot that's carrying the weight. I like that his hand's balled in a fist. That looks good, but you could still do a little bit of wrist animation, just doesn't so it doesn't look so solid. But overall, I think it's got some character to it. It kind of goes with the look of the character, so that's good. Next up is Christopher, and I mentioned that some of the keyframes didn't stay, and just wanted to kind of take a look at this. So first thing I would say is that this leg is overextended, so to help with that, you're going to need to move him down. And see how that fixes that. And he's probably going to have to be a little lower here too. Okay, and then see how his foot's between here and here, his foot's sliding back. So what I would say is, let's start with this foot, and between here and here it's sliding backwards. So the trick I like to do is, see when I like click on this frame, it changes the position, it changes the time and the character. But there's a trick, which is that if I middle mouse button click here, see how nothing moved? So it changed the time without changing the position. And then with that foot selected, I'm going to hit S, and that way it has the same position on 209 that it does on 305. And see how that back foot sticks now? And then this foot that's going forward, this one you'll want to lift up some. So he lifts up and put it down. And then when he lands, we're going to use roll and roll it back. See that? Maybe I'll get a little closer. And then just over the next couple frames, we'll flatten that out to 0. Okay, so here's the first step. Okay, and again, this one's sliding back, so I'm going to click here, and then middle mouse click here. I'm just going to use Shift W. That'll just keyframe the translate so I don't mess up that roll thing. So see how that sticks now? With that middle mouse button click trick. Okay, and then once again for this one, so it should go up a little bit in the middle here, and then when it lands, land on the heel. So we're gonna use roll and middle mouse drag. Okay, so now it just where you can see it better. And then over the next couple frames or so, 2 or 3 frames, kind of flatten out there. Okay, and then I see it slipping again a little bit. See that? So I'm going to click here, middle mouse click here, Shift W, and then that sticks. And then I can see that it's pulling on this again. So let's just check it's a little bit too high. Let's just move them down a bit. Make sure there's at least a little bit of a bend in the knees there. I might have bent them too much here. And then in the middle of the step, like here, you can have it go up some. Like here. And so forth. So that's starting to come together. Yeah, so there's more to do from there, but that gives you kind of a start. And then, put in your arms swing, and I've been mentioning if you guys want to do the wrists. I guess there's not like a control for that, or is there? Oh, wrist twist and wrist side. Yeah, so you can just click on this wrist side thing and use that to animate the wrist a little bit. I've mentioned that on a few of these critiques, so you can right mouse click key selected there if you want to add some wrist animation. And then you can use some of these various finger controls, to just get a little motion on the fingers. Do it consciously about how they might move. So yeah, just keep going on this. It's, you've got to start, but you've got to get in some more of those details and add in the arm movement and all that kind of stuff. So just keep moving forward. Let me know if you have any questions.